Hello and welcome to CIPD Bitesize. In this video, we're going to be looking at 5HR01 AC2.2, which is assess emerging trends in the type of conflict and industrial sanctions. So one of CIPD's favorite verbs is assess, and they brought it back. But the first thing that we always do within CIPD Bitesize is we break the question down into its component parts. So we will do that by assess emerging trends in the types of conflict and industrial sanctions. Now, the big thing for me in this is CIPD's sneaky S. I refer to this all the time as sneaky S, where CIPD will add an S on the end of something and it will turn it into multiple actions. So assess emerging trends, plural, multiple trends, types of conflict, types, multiple. So again, the actions that are going to be required within this questionnaire are actually quite a lot. You've got really quite a short question, but the things that you're being asked to do quite heavy. And this is actually going to be quite a struggle for the word count, if I'm completely honest. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this question out into its action points and into how you should be approaching it from an action point perspective. Here you've got, again, where I've just highlighted the cheeky S's: trends, types, sanctions. Cheeky S. CIPD love it. They throw it in all the time, and it's one of the biggest errors people make is they miss the cheeky S because they just do it on a trend, a type of conflict, and an industrial sanction. Cheeky S's. Anyway, as always, how you lay out your work is absolutely critical. So to start with, you go here. Your title is AC2.2. That is your headline. That is what you will write. That is what CIPD expect. And then every action point is going to be a subheading, so someone can skim read this content and go, I know exactly what the answer is going to be for this question. Now, on average, you have 390 words per AC. You can go above it by 10%. You can go below it by 10%. I would never recommend going below it. I think if you're below it, you're probably not answering some of the questions in sufficient depth. But with this, you've got 6 action points. Normally you have 4. So with 6, you have 65 words per AC. So there is a good chance you may need to throw some of your overthrow word count on that. So by overthrow, I mean you can go above it by 10%. So you have an additional 390 words that you can write in, and I always try and leave at least 100 words in case you refer on a question and you need some more words to answer it. So I would probably throw an extra 150 words at this particular AC. So that would take your total to 540 words, which will give you 90 words per action point. Now, as always, we recommend that you do a reference and a citation per action point. So this is going to be a big one in terms of referencing, a big one in terms of citations, and a big one in terms of evidence, because this question is filled with the cheeky S. It's all over the place. You can't get away from the cheeky S in this one. So action point 1, emerging trends in types of conflict. Action point 2, emerging trends in types of conflict 2. Action point 3, emerging trends in type of conflict 3, emerging trends in industrial sanctions 1, emerging trends in industrial sanctions 2, emerging trends in industrial sanctions 3. Now, the verb is assess. So this is where, with the word assess, you have a little bit more play to sort of add your thinking, because it's to judge or decide the amount of value, quality, or importance of something. So you can say this is the most important. I would say this is the second most important. You can add more of yourself into these questions, unlike if it's distinguished or anything like that, where it has to be very evidence-based. You can go looking at types of conflict. I would recommend this and this. These are the types of conflict and stuff like that. And this is what's really important, because these are some of the emerging trends, and I believe this because. So you can add more of yourself into this because you're being asked to judge or decide the amount of value of quality. But subheading: type of conflict 1, type of conflict 2, type of conflict 3, emerging trends, industrial sanctions, industrial sanctions. Build it out that way, and it will feel easier to write. So then you go, right, I've got 90 words, 90 words, 90 words, 90 words, 90 words, 90 words. And if you can save yourself some, save yourself some. You could probably get away with dropping action point 3 and 6 and doing it on a 4, but when I've reviewed the full syllabus and everything that's involved in it, I probably would recommend that you go for the full 6 action points for this and really sort of hammer down your answer when you're answering this question. So this is going to be one of the chunky questions, but make sure that you've got that plan in place and make sure that you don't break the words. It's really easy to leak words on questions like this where you've got multiple S's that you need to sort of add extra answers to. So try to keep yourself in line, try to keep yourself on time, try to keep yourself within the parameters. Now, as always, we then recommend some reading materials so that you can build out all these different types and emerging trends and conflicts and stuff like that. So as always, CIPD loves CIPD. So I would always recommend CIPD's data, which CIPD's research, because they put millions of pounds in it. They're a non-for-profit. They're here for the HR industry, and they research for the HR industry. So CIPD's managing conflict in the modern workplace, CIPD's working with trade unions, and CIPD's fact sheet on trade unions are probably the main resources that you would need to be able to answer this question, because in terms of industrial sanctions and stuff like that, a lot of that comes from working with unions and trade unions and information like that, like how they can bring them forward. So I would really recommend digging into some of these, and these have multiple different spin-offs and links and reading information and stuff. It's not just like one page of information. There's a lot of information in here, especially the CIPD fact sheets, and they keep them up to date. They're always uploading new information and stuff like that. So I would really recommend spending some time reading through those and making sure that you've got three really clear and distinct ideas for each of them. The last thing you want to do is deliver the same thing worded slightly different 3 times, which is another error that people make. Address the verb, a reference and a citation per action point, and make sure that everything is clean and easy to read. As always, we then give you a bit of an analogy to sort of understand the question a little bit more. So assess emerging trends in the types of conflict and industrial sanctions. And for this one, imagine a musical band as a workplace. Yeah. So you are no longer HR. You can be a bass guitarist. The CEO is the lead singer. The finance guy is the drummer. But imagine you're a musical band, and that's a workplace for this. Traditional conflict could be a clash between the lead singer and the guitarist over the creative new direction for the song. They might disagree on the genre, the lyrics, the musical style. Negotiation and compromise are key to finding a solution that works for everyone. This kind of represents traditional industrial conflict over working conditions or compensation package. If you think about it that way. Then you've got things like emerging conflicts. Now imagine the rise of streaming services. The band is concerned about fair compensation in the new digital landscape. Spotify and YouTube and all these different elements. The new challenge that requires a different approach from the traditional contract negotiations with record labels. So this represents sort of new conflict arising from technological advances and social changes, hybrid working, for example. Then you've got industrial sanctions. Now, these are the types of band members that can leverage collective power. Traditionally, they might go on strike, refusing to perform live shows. This would significantly impact the income for the band's overall success, and this could represent traditional industrial actions like strikes or work stoppages or go slows. And then you've got emerging sanctions, and this might be more targeted actions. The band might refuse to release their new album on specific streaming platforms because they deem it unfair to artists. Alternatively, they might choose to perform free community concerts to build a loyal fan base and pressure for industrial change. And this kind of represents emerging trends like selective strikes, boycotts, company culture, or public campaigns to raise awareness about worker concerns and stuff like that. So within this, you've got traditionally you've got your emerging conflicts. So you've got to think about what's normal, what you used to see, and then what are you going to see now. There's a great resignation, there's hybrid working, there's people being forced back to the office. There's all these types of conflicts that unions and non-union representative groups are going to have to work together to solve, because the last thing we want is people just not being able to work. So think of it as a band, a streaming service, digital innovations. Think of it like conflicts between people and how you'd approach this question. There's a lot of work to do in this question, but I'm sure you can absolutely smash it. If you've got any questions, obviously you can reach out to us. All the links to the reading that we recommend that we put below within the video and everything like that, so that you can follow those as well. Absolutely best of luck. I'm sure you'll absolutely smash it. Take care.